Alright, section 6, camshaft, gear trains, crankshaft, camshaft assembly, timing, overspeed trip. Alright, this is the engine maintenance manual, number 252C, model 567 engines, 3rd edition. Alright, here we go. Description. Alright, your camshaft description. Camshaft drive gear train. The power necessary for the drive of the camshaft of the engine blower supplied from the crankshaft through the gear train with the rear of the engine. Figure 6.1 show the gear arrangement. 6.2 show the cross section with the gear. Shown figure 6.1 with the gears train consists of spur tooth gears, a crankshaft gear mounted with a crankshaft with a two-light with a light and rough bank camshaft drive gear blower driver gears. The secondary idler increase with the tooth length with accommodate with auxiliary drive gear with the rotation of the camshaft drive gear with the windward. Inboard the engine with the same speed with the crankshaft with the below with the drive gear with the rotation outboard. Depending on the gear side with which differs with the beginning with the being smaller with the 8 and 16 cylinder engines compared to the 16 and 12 cylinder engines. Hence the blower speed with the faster 8 and 16 cylinders. And one blower had driven and given them with the 6 and 8 cylinder engines. The idler gear blower drive gear with the rotate with the crankshaft mounted with the out of the end with the plate with the clip with the floating bushing with the thrust plate. Thrust bearing of the stub shaft brackets with the cast oil patch with connection, cast oil bat jumper lubrication, camshaft oil supply with the main oil manifold with the camshaft driving housing engine gear train is wired in 6 to 12 cylinder engine with the 8 and 16 cylinders due to the below drive gear size. 2 camshaft assemblies with the flange segments of the tubs and 12 18 16 cylinders with the camshaft spacers between the two centers. 2-cylinder, 16-cylinder engine spacer between the center camshaft. So you have your camshaft drive, lower drive, auxiliary generator, oil jump line, number 2 idler, number 1 idler, crankshaft gear. And this shows the oil liner dirt blow filter, auxiliary generator, oil separate camshaft stub thrust bracket camshaft, number 2 gear, idler gear, bracket assembly. Floating bushing, number 1 idler gear, camshaft gear, crankshaft, oil slinger, blower driver assembly, and separated gear. And then, alright. And on the 4 and the 16-cylinder engine, the 8-cylinder engines have the individual cylinder engine segment. Each cylinder located with the camshaft with the 2 bearing journal with the 2 exhaust valve cam with 1 fuel injector cam. Figure 6.3. The segment is marked with the flange A with the 1 H over the other A with the corrected assembly. Shown figure 6.5, 6.6. With also 1 4 hole in with each of the flange smaller, sure with the relative with the position with the 1 segment. See the bearing of the block with each of the cylinder location support, the segment with the flange sub shaft mounted with each of the end of the camshaft support with the stub shaft brackets with the sub gear of the camshaft drive gear with the counterweight assembly with the welt with the welt into the camshaft gear rear sub shaft. Counterweight is bolted with the front of the left bank of the sub shaft with the counterweight with the overspeed with the trip with the assembly with the mount with the right with the bank with the stub shaft with the camshaft bearings provided with the rear stub shaft brackets. Camshaft oil supply for the main loop oil manifold gear train oil lines is received with the rear stub shaft bearings through the drill patch within each of the stub with each of the camshaft segment bearings is supplied with the camshaft center board with one of the segments bearing cap with each of the cylinder location flange and oil line to the rocker arm some shaft. 3 overspeed trip. The overspeed mechanism is provided with a safety feature, but they also stop the injection of the fuel into the cylinder. Should be the engine speed with become excessive. Engine speed should increase to approximately 900 RPM with the overspeed mechanism will shut down the engine and show if the overspeed mechanism both the blast and position trap position. Trip shaft should extend with the length of the engine banks under each camshaft provided with each cylinder. Alright, this shows for the camshaft assembly. Short length, long length, your rear stub cross section, and your front stub cross section. Alright, with each cam, the rotated contact with the spring load with the catch valve with the mount with each of the cylinder with located with the directly with each of the injector rocker arm in the overspeed with the trip at the house at the front with the engine with the trip shaft with the connected with the spring over operated link with the lever mechanism with the reset with the lever with the spring lever upper arm with the rotate with the crank clockwise with the put in tension with the executing spring tension with that being held with the trip layer over trip lever engaging with the notch for the reset lever arm with the shaft with the normal running position in which for the camshaft with the trip to the shaft and are held with the wave of the rocker if each catch pulse. Incorporated with the right brake with a camshaft counterweight with an overspeed with a release with a flyweight with adjustable tension spring with the engine speed with the safe limit with the set tension of the spring is if they overcome the central figure force of the flyweight causing the flyweight to move outward. Contact with the trip lever also with the accuting of the spring acting with the connection link for the rotate the trip shaft with the consequent with the trip shaft with the cam contact with the breech of the injector rocker arm with the always prevent with the fuel effective injector rocker arm with the contact with the its cam prevent fuel injection with the stop of the engine on resetting with the counterclockwise measure for the reserve lever the trip shaft of the cam release for the injector rocker arm catch with the position rotation with the camshaft with the starting with the engine lift with the rocker arm slightly allowing the catch balls to resume unlatched position and releasing injector rocker arm from the normal operation. All right, this shows your cam and your latch trip wire, your latch position. And then your overspeed trip, which shows the right side of the injector and the camshaft with the adjusting of the injector with the trip assembly trip lever. And that was page 99, overspeed trip position. Or see maintenance instruction 2132 for the gear with the should also begin second success with the flag backlash should be inserted with the field gauge with the entire length between the teeth. By other methods of success with the backlash will result with improper to allow for the operation injection periods as well with the poor gear operation limited backlash clearance of given with the under specification end of the section clearance of the back between the gear stub shaft with the under specification end of the section with the clearance between the cam gear and stub shaft with the gear bushing with the clearance of the must also be maintained specified with the limit that should be noted with the blower over the throttle washer is used the outboard while washer and the cast iron used as in the inboard blower drive with the gear stub shaft with the all production 8 and 16 cylinders 5 6 7 G with the engine with they have the 32 blower drive with the gear success of 50 pilot mile with the UHV with the 31 tooth gears similar to the earlier 567 series engine with the same side with the blower dry gear with the 6 and 12 cylinder 567 the G engines have the 41 T with the same U within 567 the series with the engine have the same side with the export 6 and 12 cylinder 567 C engines however the U with the 42 blower and drive gear. Although no wear should occur with the oil slinger with the 1/10 of the inch plus with the minus 100 with the inch dimension with the crankshaft with the gear oil slinger with the housing covers that should be checked for the assembly measure is obtained having the straight edge of the cuff of the camshaft with the driving housing flame with the camshaft with the position with the torque with the gear generator of the generator measuring with the distance of the face of the oil slinger determined with the protrusion of the slinger mating force mating strip with the lower housing with the covers of the flange with the difference between the measure with the equal with the clearance that's required added with the remove the shim to obtain with the prior clearance. Camshaft with the camshaft assembly with the install of the engine must conform with the segment the sequence the location left and right being shown with the figure 6 5 6 6 6 7 with the respective the engines with the short show camshaft with the parts of the numbers with addition with the long segment number located within 5 6 7 engine 2 provide assistance with these parts for the customers are having earlier 5 6 7 and 5 6 7 series. One dowel bolt with each of the segment flange with it smaller than the others to ensure the correct segment with the Wrangler position. One right bank with the camshaft with the A marker with each of the flange over the front of the engine. On left bank camshaft with the B with the marking with the flange. B must be toward with the front of the engine. Check some of the journals with the bearing journal with the less clearance with the rear with the subshaft with limited with the given the end of the section clearance measurement with the obtained with the feeler gauge. The camshaft may be removed without disturbing the subshaft with removing with the dowel over the bolts of the connection with the segments the flange with the subshaft flange remove the oil line with the segment of the bearing blocks of the rocker arm with the remove the rocker arm with the remove the segment block with the blocking cap with the allow with the camshaft with the remove the camshaft to remove the other region of the bearing with the bearing other than bearing replacement and attempt should be used to maintain relative to the position of the bearing bushing with on reinstallation of the camshaft. This may be accomplished immediately by replacing the caps over the camshaft with the removal. The entire removal is removed with reinserting the block and bolt reinserting black bolts wire with the free end of the bolts upper on installation replacement of the camshaft with lubricating free of all the moving the parts place assembly of the properly aligned with the placing of the block for the bearings is remove the rear rotate the camshaft to check with the binding any flange down bolts of the reassembly rocker arm with the assisted and part with the check with the valve with the timing to at least one cylinder with the segment. Check the segment position with the make of the other end adjusting such if the exhaustive valve with the setting with the injector timings. Alright, this shows you the long and camshaft, short camshaft, 16 cylinder, 12 cylinder, 12 cylinder, 16 cylinder, 5, 6, 7, 8, A, B, and C engines. It shows long and short camshaft with a 6 and 8 cylinder, 567A, B and C, 567A, figure C's, engines. It shows the 567 camshaft fabricated top deck engines, figure 6-7. Alright, camshaft segment removal. The individual segment of the compartment of the entire camshaft with the six-cylinder engine over the removal of the previously given. It's necessary to remove the entire camshaft with the remove of the segment of the 12-cylinder engine segment due to the general segment with the flange for the spacer arrangement. Bolt heads held in space for the covered with the adjacent of the segment flange for the prevent of the removal of the individual segments. However, the may be to remove the 18-16 cylinder by removal of the flange connecting dowel bolt. After the removal of the camshaft with the disman, will remove all of the dirt from the oil, the patches virtually inspect the subshaft of the segment of the paying particular attention for the cam lobe of the journal for the pitting of the shipping assessment for the scoring of the heating of the discoloration journal and cam of the light pit marks and the minute flat spots light score marks that may be reused after blending with the removal of the sharp edge of the handle with the polishing checking the side of the dowel of the bolts for burrs removal. Burrs and remove. Check segments into the subshaft with the show of the heat. The discoloration should be be magnaflux inspected with the hardened shaft of the C. Instruction 1754 with the information discolorization unfurnished portion of the camshaft should have the discard. As a result of the production process, this may be the new camshaft. After assembling with the camshaft with the subsection with the concentracy between the journals concentracy should be between 2 hundredths of an inch. 2,000 of an inch TIR support with the camshaft with the precision rollers journals 1, 7, and 10 and 16 on 6 cylinders, 1, 6, and 7 and 12 on the 12 cylinder, 2, 7, and 8 on the cylinders, and 2, 5, 6 cylinders for further limited for the specifications. And then goes into the specifications. Alright, I guess we would go to this one right here. Wait. Alright, 4. Locating top dead center. If you should be necessary with the check with the position flywheel with the flywheel opponent top dead center, proceed with this valve with the remove of the injection for the number 1B with the turn of the crankshaft with the normal direction of rotation. Piston just before the top dead center with the insert with the thread with the rod through the injector hole in the screw with the position puller and with the crown piston. Attach with the dial indicator tube with the bolt screw with the thread lifter with the hole within the cylinder. Figure 6A with the place the indicator shown with the depressor with a few thousandth of an inch. Set indicator 0 with the marker of the flywheel pointer with the to turn the crankshaft with the normal direction until the position moves up with the past top to the center with the indicator return with the 0 with the normal distance with the position travel with the indicator with the test but there should be range with the indicator continue to return crankshaft with the piston with the moves approximately 100 of an inch past 0 with the return crankshaft with the opposite direction when the indicator returns to 0. This will compensate for the clearance of the bearings and the piston assembly by mark the flywheel again pointer divided distance between the two marks this one point with the top dead center with the number 1 position piston. Check with the exhaust valve timing. Check with the timing over the dial. Indicate with the rocker arm and adjusting the screw with the shown figure 5-6, figure 6-9 with the valve over the rocker arm with the must be in the highest position with the exhaust valve with the clove of the press the indicator down with approximately 1/10 of an inch and set the dial 0 with the crankshaft with the normal direction rotation with the unit flywheel is at 1060 ATD with the C. With the C, the cylinder C of the cylinder has been checked with the time of the corrective with the valve bridge have to do with the move down with the 14 thousandths of an inch time must not be more than 1100 earlier than 1040 ATDC with the cylinder being checked. Time exhaust valves when blowers and oil separator camshaft the driver housing covers of the roof from the replacement camshaft the assembly of the shafts into the gear with the exhaust valve at the time this valves remove all the loosened rocker arms except for which one of the dial indicator is resting with each of the camshaft must be time with the camshaft. The check of the time with any with the one cylinder with each of the bank is usually sufficient. Locate top dead center with the cylinder is to be checked with the dials of the bolt of the camshaft with the gear, drive gear with the remove of the gear with the camshaft that can be rotated with the placing of the socket with the wrench of the flange nut with the rotate with the crankshaft in normal direction with the rotation until the exhaust valve with the being checked with it opens at 14,000 of an inch. Turn the crankshaft with the normal rotation until the flow point until it reads 140 degrees. After the top dead center with the being checked with the new gear train has been installed with the timing may be as early as 140 degrees but no later than 106 degrees. The new gear train with it being installed with a preferable to setting with the time of the 106 degrees mark as possible with the flywheel with the 140 degrees ATDC. The cylinder being checked with the down holes of the camshaft with the drive with the gear of the down holes. Camshaft with the stub shaft should be lined with approximately lined with each of the turn camshaft with 104, 106 with the ATDC. Though the dowel house is made of a lineup with the bolts of the shortened, it should be tight with the dowel holes that do not line up with the talons of the remove of the camshaft with the gear with the tub shaft. Trim the gear 180 degrees or play for the tub shaft with the move move the gear with one tooth replaced with the subshaft of the dial with the holes that should be lined up. If not possible, the line down holes perfectly, they may be reamed overside of the dials and so will eliminate with the necessity of the redrilling the gear of the subshaft securely in the subshaft. The crankshaft should now be rotated with a normal direction. Timely check for the exhaust valve being checked within approximately 14,000 of an inch over the crankshaft flywheel timing pointer at 104 degrees to 106 degrees ATDC. Counterweight replacement is rarely necessary. Applying counterweights to be sure that they are installed with the proper position within figure 610. Adjusting overspeed with the overspeed trip at the show of the engine down with the move of the cover of the right side of the overspeed housing with the turn the adjusting with the increase of the decreasing spring. Engine spring. Alright, there we go. Alright, spring dimensions was required with the increase of the engine speed with the overspeed with the operation with the engine the tension is required with the increase of the engine speed with the overspeed to operate with the increase of the spring tension for the after adjusting with the heads and root with the lock nut must be tightened. Engine running with the top test speed with the test tripper operated with the speed realized for the engine when the light over the trip with the should be between 20 to 30 seconds. Several adjustments may be required before final setting with the 900 to 910 RPM tripping speed is reached. When setting in the overspeed treatment, it should be not exceed 930 RPM with a central figure force generator communicator with a stabilized overspeed with an operation obtained with a usually recently improved cupped spring washer and cylindrical end spring guide with overspeed trip. See schedule maintenance program for frequent checks overspeed checks. And it goes over the crankshaft's specifications. Section 7, the blower. Testing.